Welcome to the channel. Have you ever found yourself sitting at the edge of a tough conversation, heart racing, mind questioning if you're ready to speak up? Have you ever felt the weight of vulnerability holding you back from showing up as your true self at work, in relationships, or in life? This is for you, because being brave enough to lead yourself and others starts with having the courage to show up, even when it feels uncomfortable. This is what we're going to dive into today, leading with heart, courage, and authenticity. There was a time when Brené Brown was just like many of us, doubtful, uncertain, and scared to lead. She'd spent years studying vulnerability, shame, courage, and empathy, researching what makes people thrive and how they can create meaningful connections with others. But it wasn't until she went on her own leadership journey that she realized something powerful. Courage isn't something you just read about in a book. It's something you embody in real life. And true leadership, it starts with being brave enough to lead with your heart wide open. In her work, Brené learned that vulnerability isn't a weakness. It's the key to unlocking meaningful connections and cultivating courageous leadership. It's easy to think of vulnerability as something to hide, something that makes us appear weak. But Brené flips that narrative on its head. She argues that vulnerability is the source of all true strength. To lead effectively, you must first be willing to show up and be seen. When we embrace our vulnerabilities, we become more authentic, more capable of forging the deep connections that true leadership requires. What does courageous leadership look like? It's not about having all the answers or pretending to be perfect. It's about showing up when you don't have all the answers and still having the courage to lead with your heart. It's about creating an environment where people feel safe to be themselves, to fail, to learn, and to grow. True leadership isn't about being the boss. It's about being willing to get uncomfortable, to embrace difficult conversations, and to foster a culture of trust. When we think about leadership, we often think about someone with power or authority, someone who commands respect. But the most powerful leaders aren't those who rule with an iron fist. They're the ones who lead with empathy, with authenticity, and with a deep commitment to creating a culture of trust. Leadership isn't about being in charge. It's about making those around you feel that they belong, that they matter, and that they're seen. So, what does leading courageously mean in practice? It means having the tough conversations. We've all been there, sitting in a meeting, knowing something needs to be said, but feeling unsure about how to bring it up. The truth is, avoiding these difficult conversations only makes things worse. It breeds fear and misunderstanding. But Brené teaches us that having courageous conversations is actually what helps to break through the tension, solve problems, and create stronger connections. Courageous conversations are not about confrontation. They're about connection. When we show up to these moments with empathy and curiosity instead of judgment, we're opening the door to real understanding. It's about listening to understand and being brave enough to speak the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. It's in these conversations that we create spaces where growth can happen. Leadership isn't something that's confined to the workplace. It extends to all aspects of our lives. The leadership skills we practice in our professional roles can directly impact our relationships, our communities, and even the way we show up for ourselves. It's about creating spaces where people feel psychologically safe, where they're free to be who they truly are without fear of judgment or reprisal. And as a leader, it's your responsibility to create that space. What does that look like in action? It starts with setting boundaries. We live in a world that demands more and more of our time and energy. But one of the most important skills you can develop as a leader is the ability to set and protect your boundaries. Boundaries help us stay focused on what matters most and preserve our energy for the things that really count. When we lead with empathy, when we listen without judgment, and when we provide a safe space for people to show up as their authentic selves, we're creating the conditions for them to thrive. People don't need leaders who are perfect. They need leaders who are real, leaders who show up even when it's hard, and leaders who are willing to listen and learn alongside them. Being a courageous leader means acknowledging your own limitations. It means being vulnerable enough to admit when you don't know something and humble enough to ask for help. It means being willing to have those difficult, courageous conversations and having the strength to listen, to really hear people when they speak. Leadership is not about being the smartest or the most experienced in the room. It's about creating an environment where everyone feels valued and heard. And here's the key. Leadership doesn't require perfection. It requires authenticity. No one expects you to have all the answers, but people will follow a leader who is willing to lead with integrity, empathy, and authenticity. Leadership is about showing up, even when you're uncertain, and leading with heart. As we wrap up this journey, remember this. True leadership is about embracing vulnerability, showing up with authenticity, and creating a culture of trust and connection. When we lead with courage, when we're willing to be vulnerable, and when we show up as ourselves, we give others permission to do the same. So ask yourself, what would it look like if you started leading with heart today? What would change in your relationships, in your work, and in your life if you allowed yourself to be seen, imperfections and all? Leadership isn't a title, it's an act of service. It's about creating spaces where everyone can thrive. This isn't just about leading others, it's about leading yourself, leading with heart, leading with courage, leading with authenticity. The world needs more leaders who are brave enough to show up as their true selves. Are you ready to step up?